Hi knitters, welcome to PJ Knits. My name's Penny and I live in Central Illinois, and I am a knitter, a blogger, and a YouTube podcaster. Thank you so much for coming back to my knitting journal here on YouTube. Welcome to new subscribers, to new viewers, and to friends who are coming back again. I do totally appreciate all of your kind words and your views and coming back each time. I've said this before, it warms my heart when I see those new subscribers along with comments and things like that. So thank you. If you do me a favor, if you would like this video, subscribe please, and comment below if you feel like it. So let's get started with some things. Today is Monday, September 11th. Here in Central Illinois, it is 11:10. It's 71 degrees. It's cloudy. It's going to be cloudy all day. And I should have videoed or podcasted yesterday, but I didn't have my act all together yesterday to do it because there was nice sunshine. But so we have artificial light today. And so anyway, it's going to be in the 70s today, cloudy all day, and we're supposed to have some rain maybe later this evening, 30% chance. But I'm telling you, since about last Tuesday here, I've had my air conditioning off. I love having my windows open. So you will hear some cars and other things out and about through the screens. And I'm hoping that we can make this last and no more AC. And the next time we turn around and we turn on the heat. That is my plan. So let's get started. Okay, Summer of Shawls 2023. This ends on, in about, 12 days, because summer is officially over then on the 23rd, and we will be going into fall, but still opportunity, I think, for knitting on shawls for sure. And so I just want to mention a couple of things. If you are following along, do the hashtag Summer of Shawls 2023. On Instagram, and also if you would put it in our thread on the PJ Knits Ravelry group, if you've got some shawls that you have knit during the summer here, or just shawls that you really love and you might want to talk about. So we're going to start first of all with my finished object, which is the Unwind shawl by Tracy Miller of the Grocery Girls. And my intentions on this, I bought this yarn at Fiber Universe. Oh gosh, it's been a few years. Let's just put it that way. And I've talked about this a little bit before, but we'll talk about finished object. My whole intention of this shawl and the yarn when I bought it, it is both of them have stellina in the black and the variegated. Also, all have stellina. And my whole intention when I bought this yarn from Fiber Universe several years ago was to knit a shawl that I could wear for Halloween and for the fall, really. More for Halloween than anything, because when I was working, we would have a Halloween like lunch, and we'd have pumpkin contests and things like that. So that's how long I bought the yarn. I have in my notes, in my journal, I purchased it in 2016, so I was still working then, and my intention was even then to knit a shawl for the Halloween holiday. And now I've knit it because I believe Halloween this year is on a Tuesday, and I'll be knitting at my local yarn shop, and so I'll have a yarn from their shop as well as something to wear for Halloween. In the fall, I can start wearing it anytime because it is a really good fall shawl. It was a great pattern to knit. It did not require a whole lot of thought and process. It has some eyelets in it. I did this on a size 6 needle. It is a fingering weight yarn. And Tracy also did it out of some fingering weight. She did it on a size 6. It was out of Moondrate Co-Merino linen, which her sample, the one that she did. And so I used a fingering weight on mine and a size 6. I am a loose knitter, so even on a size 6, it's a little loose, but it's just perfect. I like it that way. It's a nice feel to the fabric of it. I started this back in June and finished it earlier this month, and have just been waiting to block and show it to you here on the podcast. I used Neon Unicorn Studios yarn. I do not believe that she is dyeing anymore. It was one of those things that my local shop had. And it is Diamond Dust Sock is what the black is, which is in the charcoal colorway, and it has, it's a merino wool superwash and stellina in it. And then the other yarn, the Variegate, was also one of her yarns, and it was called Campfire Stories, and it is in, also has the stellina in it. I will take pictures tomorrow when it's sunshiny outside, so you can get the full effect of what's going on, and post them both on Instagram and on my project page on Ravelry. I do put all of my projects on Ravelry. I am pjknits1 on Ravelry, so all of my projects go to Ravelry. I do as many extensive notes as I can because I want you to know what I did, what mods I may have made. So I used 332 yards of the black and 289 on the Variegate. So that was a fun knit. I was glad to have that finished and here to show. And like I said, we'll see a much better picture of it. It is a triangular shawl, which I like, and I'll just wear it over an orange top. And I'm sure I could pop out a yellow top or almost any other colors that I wanted for fall. So that is the Unwind shawl. And as I said, hashtag Summer of Shawls 2023 goes through the 23rd. So post your pictures on Instagram and tag it there, and also in our Ravelry thread if you would. So I have one other that I want to talk about, and I want to talk about this little thing. Stephen West. And I have vacillated all over the place about Stephen West's Mal that's coming up. It is 4 gradients. I don't have 4 gradients necessarily in PYS, but I've been looking and looking, and several times I've been very enabled to do that. But I keep coming back to the same thing. It's a month long, and I have lots of sweaters. I've talked about some of them in the last podcast, and I'm going to talk about some more future ones. I have a whole lot of sweaters that I want to do for fall and into winter, and so I am not, as of today, I'm not taking the time out to do said shawl. I can't wait to see how that progresses, and I was very close several times, and every time I'm on a Zoom with somebody who is thinking about doing it, or I see a post on Instagram, I'm very close. And then I say to myself, no, you have all these sweaters that you want to do, plus you have other shawls and yarn and PYS, definitely, that you can do. So one of the things that I wanted to do for summer, and it's not happening, obviously, because I've been knitting on a lot of sweaters, but I wanted to pull out some whips. And so maybe for October, my thought process is I will knit on a Stephen West shawl, but not the mystery one, number one. Number two, it's a whip, so I have the yarn. It's already in progress, and it would be helpful to get it off my needles. Plus, the shawl that I have is actually one that I started in 2020. And you know what was going on during 2020, the worldwide. And I was an avid, and still am an avid watcher of the Knitting Place Instagram. And they did a story every day on an unboxing. And they had a kit for the Botanic Shawl by Stephen West. And all of the information will show up later in a couple of days in the description box below with links as to where you can go. And back then I bought a kit from the Knitting Place. And it had in it Shibui Birch, and Lang Millicalori Baby, okay? And this was in the kit that I purchased. And I cast on in 2020, and this is as far as I went with it. So I am going to, and it's a perfect fall shawl, winter shawl. I can't, and it's so soft. Trust me, it's so very, very soft. And so after finishing this one, I'm ready to start another one and take it into fall and do fall for shawls, right? That's super cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to think about doing that in October as well as something to get rid of a whip. And it's in my Sandy bag that I bought back then too. So as to get rid of a whip, but do a shawl for the fall and also a Stephen West. So that's kind of my thought process for the Stephen West October shawls and continuing on with the summer of shawls. So just wanted to kind of share that with you and pull a whip out of, maybe you have a whip that's a Stephen West, that you have something from your PYS. So anyway, by the way, grab your cuppa and let's do some knitting. You knit, I'll talk. By the way, my mug is one that someone gave me at work. I don't know who gave it to me. It's when I was working. And one morning I walked up to my office door, looked down, and here it was. And nobody ever claimed who gave it to me. So every time I pull it out, I think about that and fun. And I'm sure that somebody will see it and say, she still doesn't know. And I have caramel macchiato today, creamer in my cup, in my cuppa. So grab your cuppa and settle back and grab your knitting. Okay, let's talk sweaters. All righty. Hashtag PJKnits sweater project. You all have heard this before, but if you're new, maybe you haven't. I am trying desperately to knit sweaters ahead of the season, or almost at the tail end of the season. Sometimes those pop up, and so I'm having just a ball thinking about my fall and winter knits. And the nice thing about fall and winter is, fall starts in, and so then you need a little bit heavier sweater as you go into real fall, and then winter comes, and you can still be wearing those long sleeve sweaters and knitting them all the way. And here in Illinois, spring can be very iffy of what if it wants to stay or not. So it's, it goes up and down. So there's always opportunity to wear your long sleeve sweaters that you've started in the fall all the way into the spring until you're ready for a change in color. So I want to talk about PJKnits sweater project, and that's kind of the hashtag that I use, getting them ahead of the season. And I want to share today, and this is fun. I want to tell you a little bit of story about this one. This is Autumn League, and several of the people on Dude Knits knitted it last year. And if you've seen prior episodes, I have vacillated between several yarns for this. And the swatches weren't working. I even cast on another one that I have for winter that just was not working out. The gauge was off. I was not feeling it. I did not like anything about it. So I broke down. And when Lion Brand had their 40% off sale a few weeks back, I bought the actual yarn that the Autumn League was designed for. And it's Autumn League by Two of Wands. And the yarn is Lion Brand Collection Cotton Jeans. And I did mine out of, I have it in all my little handy dandy notes here. It's hard to see. Oh, it's in color number 108 Worn. And I have to tell you, once you get done with this sweatshirty looking part, it's knitting. It's boring knitting. It's great Zoom knitting. And I'm going to tell you how much I love this sweater. I finished it. I started on August 2nd. I finished it on August 26th. Got around to blocking it last week when I was doing the shawl. Have not put it on the whole time. And this is what, if I have to do anything, pat myself on the back, this is what I am liking about sweaters, knitting for me, and sweater knitting's for you. This is kind of like a hint for you. The more sweaters you knit for yourself, the better you will get. I had a whole lot of flops in the beginning. I wish I had a picture of one I did for my husband. I crocheted it. He was 6'7", and so I crocheted this sweater, and oh my gosh, to overcompensate for it, I mean, it hung on him. The sleeves were like out to here, and I tried washing and drying and all that stuff. It was just a total failure. So he never got any more sweaters. But after I started, you know, really looking at my sweaters and knitting them, making gauge swatches, checking my gauge throughout, and knitting them according to my body measurements and what I like, I started having some really good fit on sweaters. So that is my hint to everyone who is like, I don't think I can knit sweaters. You can. Start with 1, 2 easy ones and go from there, and then make changes to what you don't like about that sweater. Take your measurements. Measure a garment that you really love. Measure the width of it. Measure the length of it. Measure the sleeves. Measure where you like to start decreases, as I do, underneath my arm to accommodate the fullnesses here, to go down and to make the changes to the wrist, because I have a small wrist. Make notes. Get a journal out and make your notes for each of your sweaters in it as you go along, so that you have a handy reference when you're wanting to knit your next sweater. I think it's been a lifesaver for me in knitting. The more sweaters I knit, I think the better I get. And the more I want to go out there a little bit further on some of my sweaters that I'm going to talk about here in a little bit. So this is Autumn and League. I did the size medium, which is the finished of a 43.75, and I cast on with a size 5 needles. I used 1,150 yards in mine. I did the math on it. This particular pattern has a split hem. I did not do the split hem. I just did a straight rib on it. The neck, I did not do any. I did a plain. I picked up the stitches and did a plain old rib. I did not follow the pattern. I did just my 1x1 rib on both here, the sleeves and the bottom, and I cut it off to where I wanted. I knew that I didn't want a really short one, and I wanted to pull it in. I picked up extra stitches underneath my arm, which I always do, because there always seems to me like there's gaps and things like that, so I always did that. Made my decreases as I do at the arm. And this one I did do her down the side. She has you do the side with a purl stitch, and I did do that. I'll stand up so you can see the full effect, but I'm telling you, I love this sweater in the yarn that it was meant to be knit out of. And I was pleasantly, and I don't know why I am after all those sweaters, pleasantly surprised that it feels so good on, and would be perfect to wear today, to wear down tomorrow, knitting on the riverfront when it can get a little chilly with the wind blowing at the river. I'm in love with this sweater, even though after this point it was a slug, it seemed like to me. And again, I will take pictures of this and place it on the both my blog and my project pages when we get some better weather. So I am totally loving this. It is warm enough for transitional sweater, but yet with the dampness, it's not bad either. And there we go, much like the grocery girls, somebody's going to mow their lawn today because tomorrow's lawn pickup day. But sorry for the background noise, but and it's lightening up a little bit outside, so that's cool too. I can't say enough about Autumn League. If you're so inclined, buy the yarn from Lion Brand and do it, because I really do love this. It feels good on, and I blocked it. In blocking, I threw it into my tub with some soak, and pulled it out gingerly so it wouldn't stretch too much. And I laid it down on my blocking boards, stretched it out a little bit, did not pull a whole lot, and used my pool noodles, down the sides so that they would not necessarily fold. So this, for me, I am just loving this particular sweater. This is like I said, this is a win for me, and I'm loving it. And so I encourage you to check it out if you so desire. So that is my finished object sweater to show you, and then I'm going to show you some whips. And this is just another reason why I'm not going to do the make along, because mystery along. I have just 3 on the needles, and I have a whole basket full I want to share with you. First up, the whip. If you remember, if you've been with me, you will remember that I have a jacket from Talbot's, and I had an inspiration picture from Talbot's. And I had a plan, right? Here's the jacket, here's the plan. But I decided 2 episodes ago to do the Friday tee. And I wasn't loving my Friday tee as I was knitting. And you know what I wasn't loving about it? I was not loving the increases. I was developing holes. And so I was not loving it. I talked to Debbie about it, and it was like, okay, I'm pulling it off the needles. But I did not rip the yarn all back. I thought I'm just going to lay it aside and rip it off the needles. Then I decided that I wanted to do more of a striping effect. And so I took out the fingering weight version of Tolsta Tee. And I started casting on that one and doing the stripes like this. And I got down to the first section of stripes, and I was not loving the feel of the fabric that I was getting with that. So in the meantime, Friday tee off the needles is sitting over there, and I've been looking at it and thinking, okay, let's think this through. Let's rip that back a little ways. In the meantime, I pulled off the Tolsta Tee off the needles, sitting there, not unwinding, pulled the Friday tee over, and decided to rip back to where I had several offending make ones, left and right. Ripped it back, put it on a smaller set of needles, then went around and re-knit it a little ways, taking care of when I did the lifted increases, when I did the make one and make left right, to gingerly pull them up and not stretch the yarn out and not get the hole. Now, at some point in time, I'm going to perfect that whole thing, because I know there's another way of doing it. I tried the lifted increase the first time around as well, but the way that the way the Friday tee is done, you change colors, and the way that is done, and I was carrying my blue along, it was pulling, and so I was getting more pulling on that as well. One of those things that I need to perfect for me. So, and I was anxious to get it done and get going with it, to be able to wear it. And so I was not taking the time with that to give it its due, to pay attention to what I was doing, to be ginger when I come across that, just to take it easy and not pull them up and go on. And so I settled that back. So yesterday, I decided that it's going back to Friday tee. This all happened yesterday. By the way, when I went to put this back on the needles, I popped it on my head, and it was fitting really well. So that was a plus plus. So here we are. It is back on the needles. I am working on it again, which I am loving. and I'm not getting as many of the holes as I was before. I'm being very cautious. So Friday tea is back on the needles. This has been a whole lot of stuff on this one, right? I started it on July 10th. I cut bait on it. It says I cut bait on the 7th, so I had to have started it before then. And then I started the Tolsta, and then I did cut bait on that on the 9th. And so I back on this. I'm using a size 3 needle, I do believe. Yeah, it's a size 3 needle. And I'm using the Sonder Yarn from Sonder Yarn in whipped cream and regatta blue. And so I am loving this knit now. And I just want to call your attention to a gift from a friend of mine, from Becky, who knows that one of my favorite words is merde in French, also in English. And so she gave me it's a stitch marker / progress keeper, but I'm using it as my stitch marker on this one. Because if anything, this is definitely shit. It has been a shit show from the beginning, or a merde show. But anyway, I thought that was so super cool that she gave that to me, and it's perfect, for that. And where I have holes that I did not rip back all the way back, I'm going to just do a little duplicate stitch. I've got a thread in there, and I'm just going to take care of that in a duplicate stitch. So you see, even with somebody who's knit gazillion sweaters, can have those moments where the technique is just not there, or I'm being sloppy about that technique. So even I have those things. But I am totally loving this now, and I don't know if it's going to be short sleeves or if it's going to be long sleeves. I haven't decided that yet. It just depends on how long it takes me to do it and how much yarn I've got when I'm all done. But anyway, so that is one of the whips that I have in progress. And then the next one is, this is one that I am knitting at the shop or on the riverfront. This is from the 52 Weeks of Easy Knits books. There are so many sweaters in here that I have earmarked and have been looking at my local yarn store for, but also PYS. And I bought this yarn right after the book came out. It is the sweater is called Comfy. It's number 23. It's by Paula Pereira. She did one of the sweaters from Pearl Soho that's on my list for springtime. And I am loving this sweater. It's a different little bit of a knit, right? Let's see, let's tuck those in. So I'm having fun with it, and there is a chart, but there's also written instructions, and I am using, also from my local yarn shop, the Fiber Universe. She got some of those from Trinkles In. So this is a project that is in progress. It is my plan to knit it down at the shop when we're inside. And also, I worked on it last Friday downtown when we were outside, and I can pay attention to what I am doing there. So that's number 2. And this particular one, I was lucky that my local yarn shop, the Fiber Universe, she had that Frank Okra. So I am using the same yarn for the body that the designer used. It is Malabrigo Rios, and I'm using Frank Okra. And then for the contrast, I am using Hollyhock. This particular one in the book uses Frank Okra and cactus flower. And we were tossing this around when I was buying the yarn. But you can see that she has at the sleeves and the hem, the contrast. And that's why I cast on the neck with the contrast as well on mine, because I wanted that hollyhock to be up here as well. And so this is a funny note. I was too late to do this, but yesterday I saw, I did not even think about this until they were all sold out, but on QVC, the value of the day was pants from Creme Gravel, and it had a wine tasting, and the pants would have been perfect to go to on the bottom of my sweater, but I just didn't think about it in time. So I'll be on the lookout for some kind of wine-looking pants to complete the look. And as I said, I'm using Frank Okra, and that is the yarn and the colorway, and I purchased that from my local yarn shop. And I am doing a size 4 needle. And it's, you know, it's keeping my interest as well, because it's some interesting stitches, and so it's really keeping my interest totally. So I like that one, and I recommend, that's another one that you look at from the book. Like I said, there's so many from the book that I want to knit, and so just kind of stay tuned for that. Next up is Alpine Bloom. That's another one, and this one, another funny story about this one. This is Caitlin Hunter, and it's Alpine Bloom. And we talked about this a little bit. This one, you know, I was, you know, enabled by Susan Rainey at Knitting Camp. She had knit it, and she had knit it out of Spin Cycle Hot Dish. And so when my local yarn shop got in something that I thought was kind of close to it, it's called Sister Ananse. I am using it in the Heat Wave, and then my main yarn is a Plucky Knitter. It's a vintage icebox. This is their Primo yarn, and so I was trying to get kind of the effect of a spin cycle, and so I'm loving this. Now, the one thing is I do notice is, you know, on these yarns, right, usually you don't see that Barbara Poling black one, you know, but this particular one you do, and this is the Primo. This one you do, and so it's just interesting the way this is coming about. And I'm just loving it as well. Now, the funny story about this is this has a long chart on it, because it goes down, you know, to the yoke, before you split from the sleeves, rather. And so I had cut the chart in half, and I put 1 through 30 on my maker's board from Cocoa Knit sideways, so I could, you know, do the little ruler down and see where I was at and follow the chart. And I was so excited, like on a Monday night, I was so excited. I'm like, I can be done with the chart tomorrow, and I can split for the sleeves, and then it's just, you know, knitting on the sleeves and the garment and all of that. And I'm so excited. And so I came around the end of the 30 chart, row 30, and I started off with the Plucky Knit, or the vintage icebox, and I'm knitting along and just a little ways, and then I'm like, okay, now I'm going to get the pattern out and see what I need to do. I got the pattern out. There were 30 more rows. I had, again, forgot that I had cut it off, and the rest of the chart was inside of the maker's board, and yeah, so I was not done. Not near done. And so there I am. So that is Alpine Bloom. That is whip number 3. 3 sweaters, right, on the needles. Another reason why I'm not doing the mystery along. Do y'all have things like that? Do you have a list? Because I love our Tuesday nights Zoom with Dude Knits, because, you know, we've heard a lot, you know, and there's no shaming there, because when somebody says they have a lot of sweater quantities, I do as well. Or I have 19 sweaters. Do I have 19 that I would like to knit? And this is just, you know, a start. Let's see. I mean, this is just a start of what I would like to knit. Of course, I can't find it now. It was August when I did it. Made a little list in my journal. And I need to make the, oh well. Oh, for crying out loud. Oh, here we are. I've got it earmarked. I've got 18 sweaters that I would like to knit, that I have yarn to knit for. That is not all the sweaters that I have to knit, so don't think that that's going light. There's a lot more upstairs in the PYS, but I have 18. Well, 17 now that I finished Autumn League. So there's loads of sweaters that I want to knit, for sure. And some of them come out of here. So let's just segue into my new basket of yarn, or my new tote of yarn. This is the second basket for fall winter of yarns that I want to knit. And granted, thankfully, one of them is already in progress. So here we go. These two are the whip, the Fank Okra. But there is another group of sweaters that I want to knit. This will be the perfect picture. So anyway, what's in my thought process here? What have I got? What am I thinking about knitting? Let's do that. So this is Jody Long Alba. I bought this last spring. My thought for this all along was going to be Andrea Mowry's Winter's Beach. And it may still be that. But you ever get this thing where you see a sweater, it's knit in a certain yarn, and you want to knit it out of that yarn? Granted, the yarn that Andrea Mowry did Winter's Beach out of there is expensive and would be, for me, I'm going to say it's expensive for as much as I need for it. Let's put it that way. Maybe not expensive. But it's going to be up there. And I've had it twice. I've been up to Wool & Co. and twice almost bought it and haven't. And so when I get in my mind that that's the sweater I want, that's the duplication that I want to do, or something very similar, it's almost like nothing else will do. So I have this Alba. I have a sweater's quantity in it. And my local yarn shop where I purchased this also, at the time she got the yarn in, she got a little trunk show of sweaters by Jody Long, and also the book. And so there are two sweaters in here that I'm thinking about, and this would be a later in the season sweater. This would be a sweater that would be down the road. It would be, a couple others would be finished before, but it comes out of the Seaforth book. And I could do any of the garments or the shawls in here, but I am looking at first this particular one, or secondary, and that one is called Arran, Arran. And the other possibility is Orkney, and these are the Shetland names for those of you who are Shetland people. I'm leaning towards the first one that I showed you, the cable one. I'm leaning towards that. Now, I would also say that both of these, I'm fairly certain both of them, I know that the gold one is both of those sweaters are worked in pieces. And whereas pieces are not necessarily my most favorite sweaters to knit, I have done them before, but it goes back again to the technique. I'm not a good sewer upper, as it would be, and this might be a good time to start to perfect that skill. And so that's why I say this particular yarn, probably if it's going to be either one of these, is going to be a late winter one, or like after Christmas, when Christmas knitting, holiday knitting has kind of died down. This would definitely be one of those, much like my Alpine Bloom. That would be one that I would do like when it's quiet and when I just need a few hours of quiet. So that one is in my basket. It is a possibility for later on. Next up is Cantata. This particular yarn I've talked about, purchased over at Mass Avenue, got a really good deal. It was $5 a skein when we were over there last year with my table mates, the gals from Alt Knits and a few others, when we were over at Indy spending a weekend together. And maybe it was even before that. It's been a while. Anyway, last year sometime, Cantata, I got a really good deal on this particular yarn. And it's almost like a little blown. We've talked a little bit like this. It reminds me of the Woolfolk that I used some time ago on, and also of Drops Air. And I got a bag of that. And so I'm trying to decide which direction to go on that. I've been, since I purchased the yarn, I've thought about several sweaters and did research on Ravelry as to what yarn that I might want to use for this. And so a couple of them, I'm going back to this Lina magazine from summer 2023. And there is a sweater in here that I am thinking that I might do. It's first one of two. And this is called Linescapes by Veronica Lindberg. Both sweaters that I have chosen would be sufficient in gauge for that. I'd have to do a gauge swatch. This is Linescapes. And this would be just a fun knit. This would be a knit for wearing around this winter when it's chilly outside and I just want to throw on a little sweater to take the garbage out, or just sit and be comfy cozy. I think in this yarn, this would be a fun one to do. This is called Linescapes. A little bit of collar. So that's one possibility. Secondary, last week, Suvi Knits came out, had a sale on her patterns, and I picked up a pattern. I have done Suvi Knits. I did my ground pepper, and I knit 2 of those, and I loved the sweater. I love the construction. I love the pattern itself. But I've been looking at this. It's Drizzle, and this is by Suvi Knits, and I'm thinking that this is really probably the one, but I'm still on the fence. But look at this. I think that would be so much fun to do. So I'm vacillating. I haven't swatched or anything like that. So that is a possibility from my possible yarns here out of the Cantata. So then next up, one of the yarns that's in here and that I want to, and I've talked about this before, is this cover sweater from 52 Weeks. And it uses a DK and it uses fingering. And as luck would have it, I have a Legacy Fiber Arts one here in Vanilla Bean that is perfect. It's a DK. I purchased it 2 years ago for a possible something else. And this would go wonderfully as the cream for this. And then using up some of my large skeins of yarns in bright. So I think that's going to be a fun winter knit. So that is in the basket. And finally, this yarn I purchased, I showed it right after when we were in Montreal. This is a Sonder yarn. I don't know what this is going to be. It's probably going to be a petite knit pattern, but I don't have a clue. I thought maybe a cardigan again, but then I'm also liking some of the pullovers. I'm waiting for the new Lina magazine to come out that has the turtle dove cardigan. That's a possibility. We'll see. So I have this Muse. It's a merino and linen, and then also Haze. It's a Surrey alpaca in Parade. I bought that, and I've been dying for this colorway. So I don't know what these are going to be yet, but it's going to be something fun, something lofty, and I want to knit all the sweaters. I want to be, and I have been. I'm doing a lot of knitting. I want to knit all the things right now. So I'm just having so much fun with my planning for my sweater knits. You can see what's happening here. 2 baskets full. One last time, this one. I'm just knitting like crazy right now. Having a lot of fun with my knits. So, mail call. If you did Les Garcons, their mystery, mysterious tropics. It was a 3 months club, I guess, and I've showed you too. If you are one of those that haven't opened yours up yet or haven't gotten it, you might want to look away, but probably by now, I've had it for a couple of weeks, so probably by now you've opened yours up. And this is the last one. The yarn is BFL sock. It is green hibiscus and bird of paradise. And there's a little progress keeper along with the pin. Now I can add to my collection on my board. So that is the Mysterious Tropics, and there have been some really different yarns, and it's fun. I'm going to get back to my other sock that I've been knitting, but right now my sweaters have been just all encompassing. Let's put it that way. So, KAL updates, knit along updates. As I said before, just a less than 2 weeks on the hashtag Summer of Shawls 2023. And then I'm going to be still knitting shawls for fall, called Fall for Shawls, along with my sweaters. Burra KAL, I have done nothing more on that. That goes through the December 31st. I will link all of the podcasts down below that have been involved in that. I am planning starting tonight to get back to 30 minutes a day on it. That is my plan, because otherwise it'll just sit there and I won't get it done. And we've had some new people starting it again, so I am anxious to move on with that. The nice thing that I'm finding this on the sweater, on the Alpine Bloom, I am enjoying the color work on that, because it is a larger distance, and I am trying to be very cognizant of loose floats on the back. And so I'm taking my time with that and pulling it and one thing and another. So I'm liking that so much more, and I'm getting even more color work experience with it. So now I want to pull out my Burra KAL and do that 30 minutes a day upstairs before I come down to get ready for bed. So that will continue. Please post on the PJ Knits Ravelry group any of your sock finishes for mistletoes. The third quarter goes through the end of September, and as I was telling somebody this morning, the end of the week we will be halfway through September. Where did it go? I mean, all of a sudden the kids were back to school, and all of a sudden we're mid-September and we're heading towards October. And then a thought for future knit-alongs, right now I am planning to do a hap-along starting January 1st. That is going to be at least for the first 6 months of 2024, I'm planning on doing a hap-along. I have 2 that are whips. The first one it's been sitting there waiting forever, let's just put it that way. And all it needs is the border on it. And so I want to get it done. And then I have a black alpaca one that I started again many years ago, and the alpaca is from Just Beautiful Alpaca. that was a yarn that Cheryl Overly used to dye. And so I want to get it back out and working on it after the 1st of January. That one, my whole intention on that black one is it to be a blanket, it to be a travel knitter blanket, much like my half and half wraps are. Just a warm and cuddly, throw on the feet, throw on around you. And I'm planning on it to be one of those knits that I want to take on maybe some airplane trips in the future. Nothing planned yet, but I am thinking heavily about, I have a list of 4 places I would love to do on kind of sort of on my bucket list: Shetland, Iceland, Norway, and back to Paris. And so I'm having, so I'm thinking that, I'm thinking hard about that. And I think life is way too short not to go and do and to let any anxiety keep us from traveling. And so I am making lists of that and thinking about that really seriously. So that's why I want to get back on that hat shawl, both of those, and get those finished. And I have yarn to cast on a new one and ideas and colorways that I would like to buy to do hat shawls. Plus I have the epic lace shawl from Shetland that I want to get back at in the new year. So Hapalong starts January 1st, 2024, and that's just something that I'm looking at right now. So that is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for sticking with me. If you have questions or comments, put them down below. And I hope you're having a great start to the fall, and I hope that your weather's cooling down as well, and that you are knitting on some sweaters and perfecting your technique and your style, and finding your style as well in sweaters. So until next time, knit on with confidence and hope. Thank you so much.